Dog, you want to come? There you are. Good deal. Good evening. Hello. Hi, Billie Jean. Chrissy, how are you? How's it going? Good evening. Let me see. Yeah, that's probably the best light for this. Hello. How's it going? Thank you, Leah. Appreciate you liking the live, even though I haven't done much yet. Thank you very much. Good evening. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Several things going on today. Somebody said they just made some amazing almond butter tofu with bok choy belt. Sounds really good. I've never had almond butter tofu. That sounds interesting. I wonder how you prepare it. Beans arrestier. Is that how you say it? Arrestier? Beans arrestier? Hope I'm saying that wrong. Yeah, I made like this veggie pasta to go with some penny. It's like a veggie sauce with all sorts of chopped vegetables and then some penny pasta. And then I had a bunch of broccoli. I made like a little bed of broccoli and then I covered it with the pasta. It was okay. The broccoli that I got wasn't that good, unfortunately, but very thankful to have it all the same. Used a peanut tofu recipe but used almond butter instead. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. When am I taking a vacation? Soon. I was just thinking about that today. I'm thinking about taking a whole week off next week. Yeah, I need a break. I'm definitely, I don't know if it's called TikTok fatigue or whatever, but I've been doing this 6 days a week for, the last 2.5 months or something. So thank you, Slaka Shogun, for reminding me. Yeah, I'm going to take a digital break. I'm going to take at least 4 days and just no phone, no nothing. Just grab a book, grab the dog, go to a cabin somewhere and just decompress. And I feel badly for doing that because I know people from the Palestinian situation, they need our help more than ever. I know that, but I just got I don't want to burn out, Yeah, I need it. I really do need it. I need to catch up on my sleep too. My sleep's been terrible. So, yeah, just other stuff too. We all have different stuff in our lives going on too, right? And I don't talk about my other stuff too much, but, whenever you get punched in the gut other places, sometimes it just adds to the stress you go through. But it's okay. All in a, yeah, I don't want to go away for 6 months. In fact, I just got a call from a friend of mine, very much out of the blue. This is crazy, but he said he was arrested because I don't even want to get into details. But the bottom line is, when you have your day-to-day freedom and your boring day-to-day life, and all of a sudden something really crazy happens that changes you kind of wish you had your boring day-to-day stuff back, right? So, and it wasn't for anything he did wrong. It just got caught up in a situation that was not his. I don't know all the details yet. I'll find out more. It's funny. They say there's three versions of the truth. There's the one person's side, the other side, and then of course what actually happened. So I don't know. I got to find out more. But family's tough, right? Family can really be tough. I mean, I've had tremendous friction in my family. I'm not married. I don't have kids. But with my family I grew up with, my father's no longer alive, but my mother, and I have a brother and sister. And man, I tell you, it's been a rough patch, a rough road. They completely, I mean, their words, I've gone off the deep end. Like they literally think I'm crazy. And we disagree on politics and stuff like that, but I guess it's just, they don't like the fact that I'm public. They want me to be, private, which is understandable because they look at it as if I'm reflecting negatively on them as a human being. And maybe I am. Hell, I don't know. Maybe I am nuts. But I really am trying to do what I love. I love doing this. So, I mean, hopefully, I don't know. I'm not going to tell anybody else not to do what they love to do because it's what, it is what it is. And the other thing is, it's also hard to break free from the conditioning. Let's be straight. In our country and in places like Israel, we get conditioned heavily. And so if anything sort of works outside of that, it makes people very uncomfortable. And that's understandable. It's not their fault. But it does cause friction, which sucks, so. But, everyone gets where they get in their time or they don't or whatever it is. And, let's face it, my views, and maybe a lot of people here who watch me, are not in the middle of the distribution curve among the views of most people in society, right? We're probably on the very little sliver of the edge. And therefore, it makes sense for people to look at us like we're crazy, right? I'll speak for myself. Yep. And by the way, I think that's all very purposeful. George Carlin talked about this, where they want you just smart enough to do the shitty jobs and take the lousy pay and all that stuff, but not smart enough to question it and start to think about the overall system. And we talk about the system all the time here, right? And who knows? I mean, I don't know. Listen, I don't know if this is going to lead to some sort of blowback. I know other people seem to think that my doing this is going to cause them to get physically harmed. I think that's a little crazy. But I don't know. Who knows? I'm certainly not doing it because I want to get anybody hurt. That's for damn sure. Thank you, Hafid. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was on a live earlier, trying to get on a live at least. I tried to get on two different ones earlier today, but one was being run by, I think the guy's name was Moore. Is that his name? It was a total circus, and everyone has a right to run their lives how they want to run them. But when people are jumping in, interrupting, laughing at each other, name calling, all that kind of stuff, I just don't find that very interesting. I can't even hear what people are saying. So that's never fun. I really want to hear what people have to say, and hopefully somebody makes a good argument. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Hafid. Yeah, and the other thing is I try to join some lives, and there are a few people that, put it this way, I don't know, I just think they're very mean-spirited, and I don't really like that way of being either. So, although none of us are perfect, I've done my share of stupid shit too, so you never know, right? That let me says that live was a disaster. Yeah, that's kind of how I think. I don't know what's going to happen in Lebanon. I imagine that it's probably going to tamp down because it doesn't serve the long-term interests of the players. Because then the U.S. is going to get involved. I think the U.S. at this point, at least politically in the Biden administration, they're realizing that they've made some decisions that are probably not going to work out well as far as getting back into power. I think they've really overstepped. I think it's finally getting through to them that, oh no, this is going to come back to haunt us. Like, what do you think? Of course it's going to. And I don't think people are necessarily going to vote for Donald Trump, at least some may, but a lot of people are just going to sit the election out or vote for a third-party candidate because they cannot bring themselves to vote for the guy who oversaw and supported this. That's, that means that, most likely, if you love him or hate him, Trump is probably going to win. And there's some things about Trump I can't stand. His ecological record and regulation on certain things for safety in the country is abysmal. So, and his attitude, he made Jerusalem the capital of Israel, right? Instead of Tel Aviv. I mean, it's crazy. Total poke in the eye, But some people love Trump. Some people think he's the savior. He's going to make America great again. And, I don't know what you consider as great. I don't know what your version of great is. Maybe we just have different ideas of what that means. But, the one thing about him I can't say many good things, but I can say that no brand new wars started during his 4-year administration. He still maintained what was happening in Syria. He bragged about stealing their oil. There were still covert things going on in other, like the droning of, Soleimani from Iran. That took place. But at least no major new conflicts broke out where, hundreds of billions of dollars were being sent out of the country and people were dying. Somebody says, you are my favorite TikToker. Thank you very much, Tor. I appreciate that. That's some serious company to compete against. So that's very kind to say. There's so many good people on TikTok and on social media that do such a great job. It's what I saw a guy. His name is James on here. He's always wearing like this goofy safari hat, and he does good videos. But he's actually hired by Vice Media now. He was doing a segment on someone who had seen the light as far as Zionism. I saw an interview on YouTube that he did. He did a good job. He's a polished guy. I had no idea he was working for a media outlet. I thought he was just some TikToker. But yeah. Somebody says I need to run to president. I've talked about that before. As far as politics go, just to let you know, I wouldn't make it even through the front door. They wouldn't even let me run. But even if I did run and somehow win, I'd be totally marginalized. And even if I wasn't being marginalized, I'd be, what would happen. Yeah, I was going to talk about that tonight. Someone just mentioned, thank you, Pega. The Tucker Carlson, if you haven't heard, the independent journalist Tucker Carlson, who has his own network called the Tucker Carlson Network. He also has a relationship with Elon Musk's platform, Twitter/X. He has an interview with Russian President Vladimir Putin that has already taken place. I think it took place like the day or two ago, but it's going to be aired tomorrow evening. I think it's 6 p.m. Eastern time, and a lot of people are really looking forward to it. I am, most definitely. I mean, I'll put it this way. I don't know everything about Vladimir Putin. I don't claim to know a lot. But that which I do know, I know it's a lot different than what we've been told about him. And I'm sure nobody's been in power for as long as he has as a cupcake. I'm sure he's done some things to preserve his political, situation. But I think in terms of how he takes care of his own country, I think it's much better than how our quote unquote leaders operate. Because our leaders serve a whole different group of people. They don't serve the population. They serve a small cluster of donors and special interests. So it's going to be on the Tucker Carlson has a website. I don't know if it's called, I think it's called the Tucker Carlson Network. You can look it up. Anyway, I think it's fee based. I've not looked at it. When I first tried to get on last night, it said something like, please join. And it looked like there was a join fee. I don't know. I didn't really look further. Either way, I'm going to pay it because I want to see the interview. I want to record it. And I know some people are going to do a live broadcast here on TikTok while they're showing it, which I'd love to do that too. I just have to find a way to get my audio set up. I'm not really too knowledgeable about how to, rather than me just recording it on my phone, which is something, there's got to be a way to run the audio and video through your phone so it, whatever, you know what I mean? It projects with all the good sound and video quality. No joining fee. Okay, great. Someone just said no joining fee. Hey, Sheila, thanks for sharing. Okay, I have a polite request. It's about 10 after 8, almost a little bit more, wherever you may be in the world. But could you please hold the screen down for a half a second and just share the live like Sheila's doing right now? All of your mutual contacts will pop up in a list, and you just have to hit the invite button. That's what whenever I go on Eric Warsaw's live, the first thing I do when I come in is just hold the screen down and just invite everybody. Why not? And then, of course, if you want to hit the hearts, tap on my forehead. But sharing the live makes the biggest difference because they're limiting the reach of people like me. They're not letting our little broadcast go out all over the place. And I've had people come here and say, hey, I didn't see you, I didn't see that thing that notified. I was like, yeah, they're not doing it a lot of times. So that's the only way we can get a good audience in here to learn the quote unquote truth as we see it or as I see it. And then there's some other news of the day. We're going to talk about what the next phase of the conflict is going to be based on what the news is, at least. And we're going to talk about some of the situations on the ground a little bit. Does Tucker ever talk about his relationship with his father? I don't know. I don't know what his relationship with his father was or is. One thing I do know about the guy, this is crazy. He's 54. I'm 56. He doesn't have any gray hair, at least none that I can see. And look at my head. I'm just covered in gray. So I don't know. Maybe he's got better genes than I have. But I don't know. How does somebody in their 50s have no gray hair? I don't understand that. Maybe that's just his genetics. He's 54. He looks remarkably good for a 54-year-old guy, in my opinion. Not that I'm trying to go out with him or date him or anything like that. I think he's married. But you think he dyes his hair? I don't know. It looks natural to me, but maybe he does. Some people dye their hair and you can tell it's dyed. Maybe he just uses a really high-end product. Somebody says, I went gray when I was 7. I love that comment. Thank you for doing that. That made my night. I needed that. Thank you. Good stuff. He's Mexican. I didn't know that. I don't think he's Mexican. It's weird. He has one of the strangest laughs when he goes into this little silly, giggly thing once in a while. I don't know what that's all about. And then if you ever notice when he's doing an interview, when he's not speaking, and maybe this is what I do, he looks at somebody like he's really trying to focus on their soul, which is good that he listens. It's a little strange how intensely he looks at somebody when they're talking. I don't know if you notice it. Not to be critical. It's just interesting. And by the way, think of the guy. Think what he's done. He got fired from Fox News. They were going to pay him all this money to keep him quiet. He turned it down and then started his own deal. Somebody says he was born in San Francisco. And I don't know where he films from. I don't know if it's like a country house that he has. But it's beautiful. It's got it looks like a log cabin with a stream out back. It's phenomenal. And I'm not a Tucker Carlson fanboy by any stretch. I just like to see people do independent things and be successful at it. He was fired. They didn't never announce publicly why he was fired from Fox News. The thinking is that the people from the Dominion lawsuit, the people that had the voting machines, they had filed a lawsuit against Fox for misrepresenting the alleging some sort of collusion between the Biden administration and the way the votes were counted in their machines. And so as a part of the settlement of that lawsuit, I think somebody alleges that one of the terms was he had to go because he was one of the people that put a lot of that out there, I'm guessing. But that, who knows? I don't know for sure. It may be more than one thing, right? He was talking about Ukraine a lot and letting the goods out on that. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was a scapegoat or a fall guy or whatever you want to call it. Just for Men covers the grays. Hey, good for him. He looks good, I think. I'm not, it is what it is. But I'm glad there are people like out, whether you like all of him or none of him, I'm just glad there's somebody out there trying to do like this interview. This is a really important person to have an interview with. Oliver Stone went and did some interviews with him over a period of years, and it was on Showtime as a little series. And I think it's great to have foreign leaders. Like Kim Jong Un, the leader of North Korea. I think we should have interviews with Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. I mean, there's nothing should be off limits because of oligarch policy. Said he was pro-Trump. That's why they sacked him. I don't know about that. But anyway, listen, I think this is the thing you have to remember. The more we hear something repeated, the less true it usually is. The interview tomorrow night between Tucker Carlson and Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin is at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's going to be aired on Tucker Carlson's website, as well as on the Twitter/X platform under Tucker's account. His dad was a prominent Cold Warrior and CIA employee. Yeah, he could have been. I don't know how. I mean, listen, he could be, what do they call that? Controlled opposition or whatever they call that. Could be. The sense I get is he's kind of woken up to some realities about how the media works, and he was a part of it for a long time. I mean, if you believe what he says, had an epiphany, right? And that's good that he sort of shed his old mainstream shell. And we'll see. I mean, he has the balls to go do stuff like this. I'm glad. He's done some things that have been disappointing in my view. He went and did an interview with a guy named Andrew Tate. I don't know if you know who Andrew Tate is. That was in Romania, where Andrew Tate lives. That was terrible. Horrible. Lousy. Didn't pressure him, didn't ask any tough questions. It was I wonder if he didn't get paid by Andrew Tate to do it, quite frankly, because it was a softball after softball. It was like an Andrew Tate promo show for him to deny everything against him. So if you don't know much about Andrew Tate, we should have a whole segment on him one night. And again, I have no beef with Andrew Tate. I could give a shit. But I did a deep dive, right? I doing all this stuff. Once somebody starts, I was wondering, why are they coming after this guy? Why is he being kicked off of platforms? Why are they coming? Because he said he was just a guy that was trying to help young men, right? I was like, well, that's kind of bullshit. Why are they deplatforming him? Well, then, of course, I did the research. I'm like, okay, now I know why they're deplatforming him. He and his brother Tristan have done some, allegedly, and by their own voice, they've spoken about it publicly, which is why I think they're going to be in trouble. They've done some really bad things to make their money. And listen, I'm not here to judge the morality of it. I'm just saying the harm they caused other people. You can talk about the pros and cons of adult type of work in terms of adult industries. I don't really care about all that. But, when people are being harmed or manipulated or psychologically tortured to try to make money for somebody and you treat them like they're, subhuman. These are not nice people. They've done a lot of cruddy things to hurt people to make their money. And then they go around bragging how rich they are. And, again, it's all about materialism, flash, pizzazz. You're a loser if you don't go out and make make 7 or 8 figures, that kind of stuff. And, I even think, and again, I don't have proof of this, but I did hear that, I think it was Joe Rogan one time. He borrowed Andrew's phone at some event where they were both at to look something up online really quickly. And when he got the phone from Andrew Tate, the browser that he was going to use had a gay porn, or excuse me, gay porn site on it. I know we're not supposed to say that word, I don't think. Gay prom. Yeah, a gay prom, like the high school prom. And again, I think Rogan said something like, hey, dude, it's no big deal, whatever, man. And I think, who knows, maybe he is, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, he tries to fire this whole masculine sort of like, I'm the man, like you can be the man too. He calls himself the top G, which is silly, of course. Anyway, I always think when people are fronting that hard, there's something else going on, right? People can't just say, hey, I'm not perfect and blah, blah, blah. It's like, whatever, dude. And he's very braggadocious about all this stuff. He's like sitting in the hot tub, bossing some girl around saying, go get this, bring me this, like talking to them like they're a servant. It's pretty sad. Aphasia, what does that mean? Is that a certain condition? Panopticon X? I've never heard of that. Aphasia? Alphaism. I got you. Sorry, I read that wrong. Alphas, yeah. He considers himself an alpha male. So he dresses, with the pants that go down about 3 inches before your heels with like loafers and a little tight t-shirt, sunglasses, and a little jacket, just walking around like all proud and whatever. And listen, if that makes you happy, then hey. No, I'm not gossiping about other people in Mets. I'm talking about it from the point of view that Tucker Carlson interviewed him. We were talking about Tucker Carlson, and I made mention of the fact that I thought Tucker does a good job sometimes, and other times he doesn't. And the reason why, and then I had to follow up with the why. So what I said was he went to Romania to interview both Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, his brother. And I thought he did a terrible job from a journalistic perspective. If it was just two guys having a conversation on a podcast, that's different. But, he's supposed to be a journalist, and he didn't ask him anything that was remotely worthy of any kind of third grade journalism. I was really disappointed. But anyway, whatever. One man's discussion is another person's, or one woman's gossip, or whatever you want to call it. It's not gossip. It's there's evidence of what he's done. He said it himself. It's not like I'm conjecture. It's funny. I have a whole list of videos that show Andrew and Tristan speaking about what they did, not other people saying it about them, but what they say they did to people and what they did to make their money. And I actually had all the links listed up. So if anybody ever challenged me and said, "Oh, that's bullshit," okay, here's the video. Go watch the video. It's not me or somebody. It's them themselves admitting it. So anyway, so there's not a, yeah, I don't know. I mean, listen, everything on cable TV is entertainment. Let's face it, it's not journalism. So, he's an entertainer, and he's good at, getting people to think about stuff the way he wants people to. But I think he's moved further from that point of just being a standard cable TV face. He seems like he's trying to be a little more earnest. No, none of us are perfect, man, and we're not going to love everything about everybody. That's just the way it is. But we'll see. I'm sure I'll take everything on face value. Every situation is different, and if he does a good job of interviewing Vladimir Putin, great. I don't know if the questions had to be pre-submitted or, who knows, but we'll see. And I have a lot more faith in, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I have a lot more faith in that person in terms of their sanity and their stability and their sort of calm, deliberate nature in how they deal with things than any people on the Western side. Pick any Western leader, pick any one of them. And they're all not worth a damn. This guy's worth 10 of them put together, I think. And I'm not saying that because I'm in love with the guy. I'm just saying I just admire the way he carries himself and the way that he thinks and the way he acts, because he's very measured and he's incredibly smart. And so you'll see, though, if you really give the guy a shake and listen and don't just go with what you've heard, because how many of us really know what's going on with that guy other than what you've heard from the government through you heard he's a dictator, he poisons people, he's trying to take over the Soviet Union, all this bullshit, right? So somebody says, I think this is Shaquille, he says, President Putin is the top G. He's a pretty badass guy. I mean, he plays hockey. He's like 60 or something like that, or 62 or something, maybe 60, maybe he's upper 60s. He's an interesting man, let's put it that way. And he's a humble guy, too. He's nothing like what people have talked about. That's the thing I try to keep saying. The difference between what he is versus what's been said is ludicrous. So, but you make your own decision. Listen, I've watched probably about 30 or 40 hours of him speaking, just to try to get a better idea of what he's all about. And I've watched the interviews that Oliver Stone did. And I've looked at the different political motivations for him over the years of why he does what he does. And that's why I say what I say, not because of just guessing. But you can make your own mind up, obviously. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm telling you what I think. So we'll see. Am I a commu? Does that mean a communist? I'll put it this way. I'm not for what we have right now. If you think this is something special that should be perpetuated, this is some sort of completely bastardized version of democracy/capitalism that's run amok. So if you're more embracing this, you can have it. I think in theory, things like communist systems make a lot more sense, but I think in practice, people they deviate all systems, right? It becomes part of, that. I don't know. I mean, Jackson Hinkle, if you know Jackson, he calls himself a MAGA communist, whatever the hell that means. So, no, Putin is definitely not a communist. That's the thing. He's a capitalist. He's a very staunch, he's a Christian conservative Russian nationalist. That's what he is. That's my way of explaining who Putin is. I really feel like sitting in my chair. My cat's in the chair, though. Cat, can you please get out of the chair so I can sit in the chair? I hate moving the cat. There was a stitched pillow I saw once. It says, if you want the most comfortable seat in the house, you have to move the cat. Thought that was a good one. I'm hanging in there stylish. I'm a little tired tonight. It's fine. Some nights, it's like when like Jimmy Fallon or these guys that do regular shows all the time. I do mine 6 days a week. And most nights it's fun to do. Some nights you're just like kind of worn out. And tonight I was worn out. But then you get in the bathroom, splash some cold water on your face, put on your game face, and go out and do it, right? That's what you got to do with everything. Let me turn this other light off. And then let me grab my bottle of water. There we go. There we go. Now it's good. Barney, can you please move? I'm sorry, Barney. Can you say hi to everybody? Look, say hi, Barney. Say hi. Do you mind moving for everybody so we can sit here? You can sit in my lap if you want to. Ruby? Ruby? Oh. Sorry about that. Every time somebody walks down the hallway, she freaks the hell out. Okay, that's good. So I want to talk about a couple things real quick. So if you don't know, Homeland Secretary, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, was in the process of trying to be impeached by the House, and they fell short by one vote today. One vote, which was one Democrat that came in from the hospital in a hospital gown to cast the deciding vote, a guy named Al Green. They're going to do it again, by the way. I think he should go. I think he's a terrible leader. I think he's I mean, I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's perfectly friendly, but I think in terms of being a leader, he sucks. That's an appropriate term, I think, for him. But if you're a Democrat and you support him, good for you. I think he's terrible. I think he needs to go. And if you don't know what's happening on the southern border, and this is not to be dismissed, there are record numbers of people coming across the border that are all fighting age male from all sorts of different countries. It just seems very odd. And I think a lot of people are pissed about that. Ruby? So, I understand that. And by the way, there's this huge standoff kind of brewing between the federal government, which is supposed to maintain the border, and they're not doing a very good job of it, if at all. And then, of course, people in Texas, the Texas governor, as well as volunteers that have sort of volunteered to come down there and do what's necessary to maintain what the government's supposed to be doing. So we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, so that's interesting. And then I just heard also that Netanyahu announced that they're going to start doing military operations in Rafah. They're going to move major forces into and start attacking Rafah, which is bad because everyone's sort of, jammed down in Rafah, right? So between Khan Yunis and Jaffa, that's where everybody is. And they're going to be doing major, and again, what happens then? Oh, well, we had to soften up the targets, and therefore, whatever structures are left are going to start getting hit again. It's just bad, right? It's more of the same crap. So I'm hopeful that somebody from the United States is going to put an end to this crap and have a permanent ceasefire. I know that the H group, they couldn't quite come to terms quite yet on their ceasefire negotiations, so we'll see. And I have heard that I think it's 30 additional hostages have not survived their captivity. I don't know how or why, but that's what I heard today. If anybody has an update on that, please tell me. But yeah, it's not good, right? So, I don't know how you all feel, but I'm just like, I'm so disappointed that I live in a country that's supporting all this. If you're from the United States, I think a lot of people are downright angry. That's why they're not going to vote for Biden. It's like they cannot bring themselves to vote for a guy. First of all, I saw him on a podium today speaking, and I felt really bad. I mean, I don't feel bad for Joe Biden in terms of politically, but he just, as a human being, he's just completely gone. I mean, he's gone. I watched my father go through this towards the last couple of years of his life, and I'm telling you, Biden is like where my dad was about 18 months before he died. It looks very familiar. Hold on, relax, dog. Yeah, he's got all the telltale signs. And by the way, if you don't know much about dementia and how it works, it's progressive, it never ends, and it gets exponentially worse over time. So there's no way you can get better. You can't take a medication and improve. So we're seeing the best of him right now. And that's pretty scary. So the chances of him being up for election is probably zero at this point, in my guess. Unless they can Weekend at Bernie's, put him up on this, who knows. That's a movie, by the way, if you don't know what the hell that means. It's a movie in, I think, the 1990s or early 2000s where somebody who had passed away, they put clothing on this guy and propped him up so that somebody who was visiting would think he was still alive. That's what I meant by Weekend at Bernie's. You can look it up. Yeah, that makes me old. I get it. I know. So, but especially tonight, I don't know if you saw, like I said, I tried to get on a couple of pro-Israel lives earlier, but it didn't really work out too well. I kind of just sat back and listened. And, at one point, there is this attorney who I absolutely don't like, who wanted to come up and talk to me. And I was like, no, I'm not talking to this guy. He's a bad guy. But if you didn't hear in one of my videos, I don't, if you haven't seen it, you can go find it. But he called me the devil. He said that that I am a serial liar, and that I'm doing this full time, which I'm not, for money only, which I'm not. And then he said that I said I never served in the military, that I'm lying about all that. So that's what the guy said about me. And then somebody asked me to come up today if I would talk with him. I'm like, no, I'm not going to talk to that guy. He told me I was the devil. So I'm not going to talk to somebody who calls me the devil, calls me a serial liar, says I'm doing this only for money, and then says I wasn't in the military. No, I'm not going to talk to that guy. So yeah, pretty bad. In fact, I think at some point somebody came up and said something like, you can't talk like this to somebody who served. You can't do that. It's not right. Listen, I'm not going to go after anybody. That's just whatever. But it's just disappointing that this is how contentious these things get. It's understandable. People are very emotional. They get angry that people take certain points of view, and I understand it. It's. I think the last thing that people want on the pro-Israeli side is somebody who's educated, who's American, who understands it quite well and articulates it in a way that makes it clear. And you can't negate what the person says. That's a dangerous person to have on the other side of your argument, right? And that's not to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying that's probably how they view me and why they're going so aggressively after me. So rather than talking about the subject, they talk about trying to smear the person and destroy the person, right? So interesting tactics. But as I always say, somebody says AOC for president, that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Well, I respect your opinion. I happen to disagree vehemently. Not because I hate women or Alexandria. She's a sellout. She's not who she says she was, or she wasn't the person that she claims she was. Look at her history. You're going to find out a lot about her that you're going to be like, damn. So she's another sellout. She went along with all the money for Ukraine. She fell right in line when it came to Nancy Pelosi as the speaker. Kissed the ring, the whole 9 yards. Listen, it's a tough system to go into. I'm not necessarily blaming her, but she's just another creature of the establishment, claiming to be some progressive female, squad member. So I'd rather not say that, but that's unfortunately the reality that's happening. Speaking of politics for a second, though, and I had this person on as a guest, and I don't agree with everybody on everything who I support politically, obviously. But there is somebody who I am throwing my support behind, because on two really important issues we see eye to eye. One is peace, not sending all this crazy money to support these foreign wars, and on getting rid of the central banks, which are completely destroying the economy and making things great for the rich and horrible for the rest of us. So just for those points alone, if somebody had those two, I would vote for them in a heartbeat. So her name is Diane Sare, S-A-R-E. She's an independent candidate for Senate in New York State. And she's going against Kirsten Gillibrand, the incumbent, and that's the same Senate seat that Hillary Clinton had before her. So, obviously, listen, I don't think any one person being elected is going to solve our problems or whatever, but I'd sure like to have one person in who can speak to these issues from a point of honesty and integrity rather than these bought and paid for clowns that we have in there now. Someone says, I'm not an atheist. I'm not an atheist. Is that your name? Or no? Anyway, yeah, Diane Sare. So if you want to see her website, you can find her on YouTube, but her name is, her site where you can either take a look at her, donate, his name is Sare for Senate, S-A-R-E, the name for, it says SareForSenate.com. Check her out. She's a nice person. Like I said, she comes from a background of a tutelage of a guy named Lyndon LaRouche, if you know who Lyndon LaRouche was. And again, I don't agree with everything Lyndon LaRouche said. It doesn't matter, though. The two key things that I think are really important to our future, not fighting any more wars, using that money domestically, and stop the banking system from being privatized. It should be a publicly owned, national bank that we all run ourselves, and the money goes to benefit the people, not the richest people in the world, right? So, do I have Riz like Duke Dennis? I don't know what that means. Big T. I don't know what that means. By the way, if anybody wants to come up and talk, feel free to do so. I'd love to have you as a guest if you want to come up and join. I'm trying to see if I see some particular names here. I see Shaq's here. Thank you for being here, Shaq. Trying to recognize some other regulars. Asme's here. Thank you, Asme. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot by inviting them up. Don't worry. I'm not going to do that to you. So yeah, it's always fun to talk about things. So yeah, something came up right before I went live, by the way. I got a call out of the blue from one of my friend's daughters. And she has a little bit of I don't know if it's a speech impediment or whatever, but it's very hard for me to understand what she's saying. So I do my best. I probably catch every fourth word. But what happened is my friend, I guess there was something happened with his wife. And I've met both of them. They lovely people, nice people. And they have 6 kids, and which is a big family, right? And so something happened. I don't know what, but he got like a restraining order type thing done in some way. I don't even know the details. But he got picked up. The cops came by, and basically they thought he was doing some, because he's a homeschool dad. He teaches his kids while his wife works. And so, I don't know, man. It just, when you hear somebody's life being turned upside down by something like that, it's just like, life can be tough. Some of the curveballs that get thrown our way, right? It's pretty crazy. But I've never been. I don't know what homeschooling's all about. Has anybody here ever been homeschooled? I'm just curious because I went to school like private school and then public school for my whole K through 12 education, and then I went to college. I've never done any homeschooling, so I don't know exactly what people talk about or what they don't talk about or how it's different. I've never been involved in that before. It's interesting. Somebody says, I homeschool now. Cool, that's cool, interesting. I think a lot of parents like it because they can control what their kids get exposed to or what they don't get exposed to. I know in a lot of these public schools in our country now, they've completely changed I'm not a big fan of the new president of Argentina. They've completely changed the curriculum to include more what they refer to generally as woke type stuff, meaning different genders, sexuality issues that, and some parents argue it's too early when a kid is like 8 years old to start encountering some of that stuff. So, I don't know. I don't have kids, but I would imagine that if I did, I don't know. I probably wouldn't want to have my 8-year-old kid talking about that stuff. Maybe when you're 12, I guess, would probably be more. I don't know. I don't know what the right age is. And then the other conversation, I went on someone's live a few days ago. I don't hope this isn't too controversial to talk about. Is I don't know if 18 and older is the right time because kids go through puberty, right? And you want to have some conversation with somebody, maybe not at the schools, but anyway, I don't know. I don't know what the right venue is, but I went on somebody's. I guess it's called their live who was transgender, and we were talking about issues about all the stuff that goes with that. I don't know enough about it to talk from a point of expertise, obviously, but when can kids have puberty blockers? Do they have long-term impact? When can they have gender reassignment surgeries? What is the right way to diagnose someone with gender dysphoria? These are things I don't know exactly when, and a lot of people argue that it should be earlier than later because if somebody is legitimately in that space, they should have the ability to do the things that are necessary to protect their mental health. And other people argue that, well, when you're that young, you may be confusing what you think is gender dysphoria with whatever else a young person goes through. And I understand that argument too. I don't know exactly what the protocol is for talking to a psychologist or psychiatrist to iron whatever that to ascertain what's what. But I do know one thing, if you don't know this, and this sounds very, like a negative angle, but there's huge money, and I mean huge money, in gender reassignment surgery. It's incredibly expensive. And doctors that do it make a ton of money. So whenever you get money involved, and who pays that? The health insurance companies pay it. So when people talk about doing this earlier and giving people more latitude to do things like this, you have to wonder, are they doing it for the right reasons for the people who are going through this? Or are they maybe doing it for other reasons? I don't know. Those are fair questions to ask. And again, these are sensitive issues. I'm not someone who's ever encountered gender dysphoria or trans. I'm a straight white male, or what they call cis. I don't know how that name came to be. They use the term CIS to describe somebody who's straight, a cis woman or a cis man. I don't know where that came from, but it could be short for something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm curious to hear what people think about those issues. So these are kind of cool issues to discuss, right? Because there's no right or wrong answer. It's just shades of gray and people's opinions. But I have heard school board meetings where parents bring in some of the books that are either in the libraries that the kids have access to or used in school or both. And they at the school board meeting, they're given 3 minutes and they start reading from the books. And some of the language is very, very, it's candid. Let's put it that way. And a lot of times they'll shut the parent down. They'll make them stop. But if kids can read it, why can't they read it at a school board meeting, So those are fun to listen to. I like it when they grab the parent. They try to pull the parent, especially the bigger parents, like, get off me. Keep talking about this. I think that's fun to watch. Anyway. Okay, we do have a guest that's going to come up. I'm going to try to keep things orderly. And I'm a little beat tonight. I might actually close down shop a little early, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, we have Abbas family, I think it is. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm amazing. How are you feeling?
I'm a little tired, but otherwise okay.
Well, you look great.
Well, very nice of you to say.
Thank you kindly. So I know you were talking about homeschool, and I do homeschool my kid.
Oh,
Um, I've been homeschooling even before COVID. Just one of the reasons why I homeschool is because we get things done a lot faster. And when you're in a school type setting, you
mm-hmm.
don't really necessarily need to be teaching and sitting for that long. So we're able to get through our curriculum, but where I am, there's so many ways that you can homeschool. So you can join a co-op, that's all the parents teaching. There's so many different programs, like we go through Power Homeschooling and Calvert Homeschooling, which teaches your science, your technology, your English, and then we're
Okay.
able to throw in like foreign languages. So my kid is learning Arabic, learning how to read Arabic
Wow.
and Mandarin. And then also, I just have it set up like a private.
How old is your child?
She's 10.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
she's 10. So along with that, like we play golf and horseback ride as well.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's dependent on how your kid is and what how you want your kid to learn and how structured you want it to be.
Yeah.
So, I really think homeschooling works out good for us, just because of just being stereotyped in the school system sometimes. And I did a paper on this for college that, Black kids and minority kids are sometimes stereotyped. And I did not want her to be put into a box. And so we're just thriving and we get reviewed by our county and everything works out great. And I mean, we just submitted a paper to NASA about radioisotopes.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you
Wow.
are what you can make it. Homeschooling is not like 1960s homeschooling where the kids are like weird. There's so many different programs out there where there are other kids involved.
Okay.
There's one called Outschool. And so she's taking astronomy, and there are like 8 other kids in the classroom set up like a Zoom call. So, I mean, I would rather keep my kid in a bubble, um, so that way she doesn't have to experience just all the nastiness in the world as of yet. And when she's ready, then if she wants to go to school, then she has that opportunity.
Now, when you said materials, are there standard course materials? You mentioned some company or something like that, or do you have to find your own material? How do you come up with the curriculum?
So I'm pretty organized. So the county tells me what we need to do. And so from there, all you need to do is just Google. And there's so many different programs. There are Christian programs, there are Muslim programs. There's so many different programs that you can choose from.
Okay.
Also, there are private schools that offer this as well. Like I think Harvard has one also. So it depends on what are you looking to get out of it.
Yeah.
It's just such.
One of the folks in the comments made a good comment. They said, "What about the socialization that kids need? How do you feel about the fact that they're not in a normal school environment or quote unquote normal?"
Yeah, so I did a paper about that too. That's actually a myth. So the socialization aspect of it, there's so many different programs that you can set aside to have your kids interact with other kids. So when we go to golf, it's not just her, she's playing golf with other kids. When she's horseback riding, she's interacting with other kids. She also goes to Arabic school, so that's actually a school setting. Then she goes to Mandarin school. So there's so many different types of programs, especially the co-ops. You have different parents and their kids. So it's run like a school. You have your lunch and you have break time, then you go back to school. So that's really a myth. And if you think about it, if you're in school, are you really supposed to be talking? And when do you have that time to talk? It's only for that 30 or 45-minute recess period. You're not supposed to be talking in school at all.
And I guess one Sheila mentioned something in the comments, which is a good point, is that we've had these different things where people come in with these deadly items and they do certain things to kids, and obviously if you're homeschooling, unless something really bad happens, you're probably not going to have to deal with that.
Right, that's so true. You said Sheila said that. Thank you, Sheila,
Yeah.
for bringing that up because
Yeah.
it's very scary. You send your kid off to school and you want them to be protected. And, that's just a really scary thing for me. Not on top of the bullying. We talk about life situations so that way it's not too bubbleized where she's not going to ever experience anything, but we have growth mindset moments where we talk about our feelings and we get in touch with, okay, if we feel this way, then how are we going to counteract that feeling? So when we're feeling like down in the dumps, because every day is not going to be a perfect day, how do you get your mind out of that hole, and how do you persevere? How are you resilient?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and that's part of life too, being able to manage your swings and how you feel. And it's like the weather, right? It never, you think when you're in a storm of not feeling great, it's never going to change. Like, oh man, I hate, and then the sun comes through like, a few hours later. It's like the weather it goes back and forth, that's how I find it.
Right, exactly. And I can't raise my kid now like how I was raised, like in the 80s, like just get over with it, or your feelings aren't really validated. I mean, I don't know if that's how you grew up, but it was just hard for me to express my emotions.
Mhm.
And so I want to make sure that I provide um, a safe atmosphere where she knows like we don't cross boundaries. I respect you, you respect me. And
That's good.
yeah, oh, thank you. One of the things that my professor said, he said, if you don't learn anything in my class right now, just be a great human being. And so that's just what I want my kids to be, just great human beings. So that way, what you see right now on this earth, we'll have generation alpha, I think she is, that'll help change things.
Yeah, that's great. It's great for that. Now, in terms of, I mentioned this particular issue, and while I have you up here, I'm going to put you on the spot though. So, does she know much about your daughter? Does she know much about what's going on right now in the Middle East situation, or do you keep that away from her, or how does that work?
Oh no, she actually wrote a MLA paper about it. So she's only 10, and I have her writing college level papers. So I think Mopeshi has Palestine Academy. So she's completed all of the courses.
Hmm.
She's reading the 100 Years of Palestine, and we've taken out like 5 or 6 books about Palestine. Um, I, I show her the pictures. They're very graphic. But then there's some times where she says, well, I just don't want to, I can't look at that, mommy. And I
Mm.
respect that. But every day she sees me, I tell her, this is my time to be an activist now. So just give me about 40 minutes and let me post. And she has an understanding. Even when we go to the store, we do not buy any Israeli products. And she has to remind me, Mommy, is that Israeli? She was with Grandma today. She said, Grandma, we can't buy that because that's Israeli.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, well, good. I think that we should express ourselves in terms of what we believe and who we support accordingly. I think that's fair. And we have that ability, so we should exercise that ability. I was talking about that today. It's funny. I don't know if I told you this. I don't know if you follow me for a while, but I talk often what I believe what's going to be required for some of the problems of the U.S. to be overcome. I wish it weren't the case, but one of them is about that very issue. It's about our buying power, and when it's done by a few 100,000 of it's obviously impactful. But if it was done by many millions of us, or tens or 20 millions of people, it'd be much more impactful. So the key is all about communication and organizing. That's the hard part because we don't have access to the television and to these major internet sites. We have access to things like TikTok, but our reach is limited according to how the algorithm or how the people who own these sites choose to allow it. So, but it's an
Absolutely.
interesting time. It's changing bit by bit, but the question is, how much time do we really have left to get ahead of some of these problems before they become so difficult that it's going to be harder to then get ahead of them? That's a fair question to ask.
Well, we need more people like you, Chip. I've been following you for a very long time. And you've had some hiccups last week, but that's okay.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're human, right? I mean, things happen, we forgive, and we need an advocate like you because you're so knowledgeable, and also your voice is so soothing, and you are intelligent and are able to articulate without having to be demeaning to those that are trying to be kind of mean to you. So we need more people like you in order to make the change for the future. So keep going.
Yeah, I think that, thank you for the nice words. I think that, by the way, I'm no follower of their religion, but the principles I love. And I think one of the things that I heard that Christ said was, love thine enemy like that as thyself, or something to that effect. Meaning that I think having anger towards others only hurts us more so than it does the other. Like they think they said it's like a poison within you if you hold on to it. So I try not to hold on to that stuff because. And the other thing is, there's good in all of us, and somewhere in those people, that good is there. We just have to find a way to get to it and get rid of the programming that's keeping us from getting to that good.
You're here. Well said. Well
Yeah.
said. And I definitely agree with you. And I thank you so much. I have mommy duties that I have to tend
All
to.
right, mom, do your thing.
Okay, and thank you. I'll be listening in though.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, enjoy your mommy duties and hope your daughter has a wonderful evening, and both of you. How cool is that, right? Somebody who does homeschooling. This is the cool part about the internet because I would never have a clue about any of this, and so I just learned a bunch of stuff that I didn't know. There's probably so much more to know about it than I'll, as a non-parent, I probably will never find out. But it's interesting to learn. Yeah, not having kids is weird because everybody that I know that in my age, every single one of them has kids. Every single one. Nobody's single, never. So I'm a very rare thing. And the other thing is, if you were to take all the attributes of certain people, their political views, their lifestyle choices, and then plot them on the bell curve of distribution, I probably would be on the baby, they see the very tail end. I'm probably somewhere way down there in the little corner. So she's still on the guest list. Let me see if she's here. And I didn't follow you, by the way. I feel badly. I should have done that. I'm looking at the list to follow. Anyway, I don't see it right now. If you want to tell us in the chat, though, if you want to write a note, tell us your name again. So because people want to follow. Here we go. It's Abbas Fam 3. Abbas Fam 3. Let me see if I can follow her. I should have followed her. Anyway, if you send me a DM, I'll follow you back if I'm not already following you back because I'd like to have you up again. You sound like a very sweet person. Good stuff. All right. So anyway, as far as what's happening in the world, as far as that goes, latest news, I heard Scott Ritter talking about this today. He said that, if things do widen, if you don't know who Scott Ritter is, he's a former UN weapons inspector that was very controversial in criticizing the second Iraq war around 2003. And actually, if you haven't seen the video, type in Scott Ritter, Joe Biden, and you'll get to see this really interesting video where Scott Ritter was testifying as a younger guy in front of Congress when Biden was one of the senators, and you know how those things work, those hearings. And Biden just rips into him. And meanwhile, Scott Ritter was right the whole time, and Biden was totally wrong. It's just, you want to see how much of a jerk Biden really is. When he was younger, he was much more outspoken and you can just see how the guy is. He's terrible. He's just he's too old and out of it now to be that bad as he was. But yeah, a lot of people are wondering, where the Ukraine war goes next, and why is it the U.S. is trying to earmark even more money for Ukraine? Like, what's the point, right? The war is pretty much over with as far as the ability of the Ukrainians to win. Now, there are people from Ukraine that come to my lives and listen, I'm not diminishing the capability or the importance of the Ukrainian people when I say this, because obviously they've been through hell, and I'm sure they can't stand the Russians because of what's happened to their country. I completely understand that. I think what Scott was sharing was that, and Colonel Douglas Macgregor, is that ship has sailed. Like, the chance for the Ukrainians to take back the territory that's been annexed by the Russian Federation is, probably slim to none. And for those of you who hold out hope for that and think the Russians are at fault for this or whatever your opinion may be, that's just not realistic. Just like it's probably not realistic that the Israeli territory that's been since 1948 will probably be reverted back to some other entity. It's probably not going to happen, but who knows? You never know. There could be a conflict of some type, but I think that would be defended to the death. So, but the U.S. is still trying to send more money, but where does that money go? And most people don't know this, but if you don't know what happens when money is earmarked for conflicts, it doesn't go to the country. It goes to the weapons manufacturers and the service companies that do the things for the war effort, whether it's supplies or services. And that usually is US and UK companies for the most part, or maybe some Western European corporations, but mostly the US and the UK. So that means that these rich people, in essence, are taking money from the treasury, the credit card bill that we have to pay and our kids have to pay, not that I have any. And the benefits go to the people who make and sell these things, most of which are owned by very rich shareholders. So people who own about 70% of all the stock in the whole world are the same 1% of people. And so 70 cents out of every dollar of profits go into that group, right? That's a lot of money. So I think Julian Assange said this. And by the way, if you haven't listened to Julian Assange in terms of his quotes, if you'd ever followed it, go to YouTube one night and just find a bunch of his videos. He's amazing. And obviously he ran WikiLeaks, so he knew a lot of the inside stuff that was going on because they got given to them. But he said some really interesting things. He said words that will last forever, I believe. He said that war is not meant to win the conflict. It's meant to stay going on as long as it can to act as a money laundering operation to take the money from the treasury and give it to the people who make money off the process. That's what he said. And I think that's true, unfortunately. And I've done videos about this. I think one of the very first videos I made when I came on TikTok, the first week, was about stuff like this, where there's this whole category of people, and you and I would never start a war for money. I mean, that's like the last thing we would do, right? That's like crazy. But unfortunately, there are people that do that. Like, they just, as long as they make money, they don't, whatever happens, whether it's ecological damage or people dying in war or whatever, people, factory moving overseas where everybody loses their job and they can't pay their bill. They don't care. It just doesn't matter. The other part of the money, we mentioned money. A lot of the money being used as well is going to pay for all, basically the US has been running the Ukrainian society with all the money for the last couple of years. Actually, about 2.5 years. No, not quite, well, yeah, February, about 2 years. When they have their pensions for their workers, we pay that. When they have their employee salaries, we pay that. When they have to go fix stuff in the country, we're paying for everything. So it's as if Ukraine doesn't even have its own anything, and we're paying for everything. You and me. I know that sounds crazy. Like, why would we be paying a 65-year-old pensioner who used to serve in the Ukrainian government? That's a great question. And we have people here who are homeless. We have drug addiction. We have, student loan debt that's through the ceiling. We have people that can't get jobs, or they have disability, or whatever it may, all these problems, right? And yet we're paying the whole Ukrainian society to operate. That's unbelievable. Think about that for a second. That's why a lot of people, I don't know if you've seen these videos. I don't know if I sent it out yet. Let me think. No, I've done the videos on my phone, but I haven't edited them and put them out yet. But I'll just tell you, I've seen all these videos here on TikTok where people are like pretty pissed, right? And we've seen videos of people complaining they can't make their bills and they're having a tough time making ends meet and all those. And then we've seen videos recently of people saying, you know what? I'm pissed. They're using all my money. They're taking this money out of my check, and they're sending it off to these foreign wars, or letting people come in from the border, and these people who come in get to stay in 5-star hotels and they get all this money. And it's like, what the hell's going on, right? And they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. No, I've had enough. Now, I'm not suggesting you don't pay taxes. I'm not doing that at all. But I'm saying that these people have made the decision that because of how crazy they think things have gotten, that they just can't bring themselves to give money to the government. They're like, no, enough, I've had it. And I think that feeling is very pervasive, especially now that people are kind of waking up with what's happened in this conflict. And not only are they pissed about the money situation, of course, with inflation and all the other difficulties of getting by, but then they're like, you've been lying to me about everything for the last 30 years of my life. What the hell? I bought into this crap. What the hell is wrong? What's wrong with me? And they want to change. Now, some people think that Trump is the way to do it. I don't happen to believe that. And I don't believe the two-party voting system is the way to do that. But people are anxious to find something different. I know that. They're thinking about third parties. They're talking about, how to get around this. But as I've shared multiple times, I don't think the election system is going to get it done. If it would, I'd be very, very pleased to see it happen. But, and it's never bad to vote. It's never bad to get better candidates in, because it's better than not. But the power structure is set up to not allow things to change through the very systems that it's now co-opted, right? So I know a lot of people say, well, we need to put term limits in, or we need to get rid of everybody that's there now. And we could do that. We could do both of those. They may not be bad things to do. However, remember that the power system, it just means they're going to have to spend more money than usual. And right now they're spending whatever they're spending. And if you get somebody who's been in there for years and years, you kind of got them on your side. If you got to spend a little more as people change, you spend a little more. And that's the problem, is the money and the permanent sort of establishment of the war machine and the intelligence apparatus and the media system. It's pervasive, right? And it sort of controls the whole thing. And between the high net worth donors and the money is now speech, and we have corporate personhood and special interest groups like AIPAC and other industry groups. It's just all this pressure from the money and the power. And it's just impossible for the average citizen, even large groups of us, to make a difference and have them pay attention to us. It's bad. Bernie, Beto O'Rourke 2024. I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to run for president again. And I don't think he'd be a good guy to have anyway. And when he did run, remember, they ran him out of town. They cheated to get him out of there. How about suggesting solutions, Yves? Well, hey, that's a great idea, Yves. I'm glad you asked that. So first of all, before I get into details, a couple quick things just to let you know. First of all, I'm going to mention this because it relates to what Yves just asked. And that is in my bio, which is accessible if you go to my main page where my videos are. There's a little thing called Linktree Chip Barnes. It's a clickable link where you can access my bio. And the reason I'm mentioning that to you is because if you do that, if you scroll down the list of links that are listed on that page, you'll see one that says Action for Change. The word action, the number 4, change. And if you're curious what needs to be done to do this, it's the conversation's there. That's where the conversation, that's one of the places where this conversation is happening. But if you want a quick summation of what I think it will take, I'll be quick because many people have probably heard this. So we all know that if a union is taking advantage of their workers, they're making record profits. The workers are not thinking they're not getting a fair shake, or maybe the companies cut their benefits or cut their hours or whatever it may be. If one worker walks into the office, or even a handful, and they go, "Hey boss, we don't like this, please change it," and the boss laughs them out of the office, right? Because they have no leverage. So what gives workers leverage over the company? The company, their power structures, the shareholders and the management, right? Those are the owners. And then they call it management versus labor. So labor, they have to get together. They have to combine forces. They have to organize. And then they can form a union. And then by having that strong set of numbers, they have scale that brings power and brings leverage. And then they can use that leverage to try to negotiate something, a better outcome. So if you understand that process, now what do people do when they join a union? They have to pay union dues. And no one likes to pay money out of their paycheck, but what's the benefit of that? Well, if a strike has to happen to get better outcomes, there's some money put aside to keep people going until the strike's over, or hopefully. So there are some companies like Walmart that they'll shut the whole store down. If they even hear a whisper of somebody they'll just shut the whole damn store down. So they don't want to see unionizing no matter what. But other companies can't shut the whole store down. And if the employees go on strike, it hurts everybody. It hurts their customers. It hurts the company's bottom line, and it doesn't even help the workers. Nobody wins during a strike. So usually companies will do what they have to do to, get it right. Even the threat of a strike can do it sometimes. Just the threat of, maybe like with UPS. There's a bunch of union workers at UPS who threatened to go on strike, and before the strike actually happened, like the day before, they worked it out. They came up with a deal. It's like the debt ceiling, those kind of last minute deals. So take that same way of thinking, but apply it to a bigger scale, just the whole country. And the power structure that I mentioned a minute ago, that is the company and the shareholders. That's management and shareholders. That's the power structure that stands in the way of us, the workers, quote unquote, the constituents, from achieving things that we think we should have as a more equitable system. If 1 or 2 of us call our elected official, they laugh us out of the room. If 10 or 20 of us stand in the hallway in Congress and protest a senator, they laugh us out of the hallway, right? They just ignore us, or they'll say something to get rid of us or whatever, or they'll call the cops. If 300,000 of us go out to the National Mall and protest, they look at us and go, "Hey, whatever, didn't affect us. Have a nice day." But just like the union, if you get 30 or 40 people out of 1,000, it's not going to be it. But if you get 900 out of 1,000, well, that's a different story, right? Same thing with this. It's all about scale. So you have to organize large numbers. And then what do the people like us have that they don't? Well, we have a lot more of us than there are of them, right? We have a lot of people, right? So there's a lot more workers than there are management in a company, right? So you can cause problems by virtue of your numbers. But what do you do with that? Well, we have some things. We have our labor, just like in the union example. We have our purchasing power. We have our choice to remit or not remit taxes. We have our choice as to what we purchase with our money. So, for example, if you chose to only buy absolute essentials during whatever you participated in as far as what we're talking about, you're not buying stuff from Amazon. You're not buying stuff from your local store. You're just basically starving the economy, right? And then if you didn't go to work, you participated in a large strike outside of just one company. Let's say that 60 million people have said, "You know what? If this is what we got to do, it's what we got to do." And they all just don't go to work. And there's what's called mutual aid, which is similar to the union fund. So how are you going to make it through this process? Well, if I risk my family's security to go do this, how can I be assured I'm not going to go bankrupt? That's how. And so this would be organized across a number of different places with no particular leader, just a bunch of little community-based groups that would all sort of have a common protocol. And they would have a common set of desired outcomes, just like a union has a list of demands, right? You might say, we want $1 more an hour. We want to have another day of vacation, and we want to have 2 personal days a month, or whatever, whatever the commonly held belief is. And I think as far as that goes, most Americans would say, whether you're Donald Trump or Joe Biden or some other person, in terms of who you support, you'd probably say you don't want crony capitalism, right? This unfair system where the companies on the in get rewarded and everybody else gets put on the outside. Like we saw what happened in the pandemic, right? Certain bigger companies got to make all the money and all the little businesses had to shut down, right? That's crony capitalism, let's face it. And then you don't want money as speech. You don't want money to be allowed to be spent as First Amendment protected speech. That's bullshit. And you don't want corporations to have human personhood, right? So these are some things I think everyone would agree upon, no matter where you are, unless you're part of the 1% making all this money. And then you might say that, voting has to be done on a Saturday when everybody can vote, not just people who, can take a day off to do it, right? That's something a lot of countries do. You might say that healthcare has to be extended to all people in the country, and that we'll tax the rich fairly to pay for the additional cost to have healthcare for all. And by the way, taxing the rich fairly in and of itself is probably a whole other conversation. We have to start taxing wealth, not income. Because rich people live off their assets and they borrow money to pay their bills. And all they do is pay back the interest and the principal. And at the end of the year, they deduct the interest. They don't pay any taxes, which is crazy, right? So again, all these things that are no-brainers, right? I think if you were to go to a room full of Trump supporters at a Trump rally and a bunch of people who are vote blue no matter who, you'd find them all agreeing on all these things, right? Yeah, that sounds fair. You don't want senators and congressmen insider trading, right? Why should they be allowed to illegally insider trade because they got elected? That's crazy, right? So, whatever the top 5, 6, whatever it is, just put it out there. And then, okay, these are the demands. This is what we're going to do. Now, how could you use your numbers, right? So you got your buying power, check. You got your ability to go on strike, check. You got your mutual aid, check. Now, what else can you do? Well, a lot of times the unions will go out and what they call picket, which means they carry signs, they go in front of the business, and they walk in front, letting the public know what they're doing. Well, imagine if everybody just decided to picket the country, right? I mean, maybe carry a sign that says, no more, what are those top 5 things? That's got to go. And you have a little chant, whatever. And instead of being a protest with 300,000 or 3 million, it's 30 million people. And they're in different cities. And let's say instead of going in front of the business, they block the highway. They block the airport. They block the seaport. They, whatever, fill in the blank. You get the idea. And the goal would be, because nothing else picks somebody's head up if you're rich, that if you stop making money, if nobody's buying your stuff, and if nobody's allowing the trucks and the circulatory system that allows stuff to move so you can sell your stuff, well, now your head's going to pop up and go, wait a second. Just like the management who's losing customers and causing problems with their business, the shareholders get itchy, same idea. But here's the thing. This is way bigger than one company, right? And what do you think the response could be from the management or the power structure? It's going to be pretty severe, right? So Eve just asked me what could be done, solutions. So there you go, Eve, there's a solution. Now, is it feasible? Can it be done? It's going to be very difficult to do something like that if it even is thought about, much less tried to be acted upon. I'm not promoting it. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just pointing out that I think it's a sensible path if one were to write a movie script about how this could occur, something like that. So somebody says, well, what about after that? Well, for example, you might even have something called a citizens council. Instead of having a president, you have a citizens council that acts as the executive function of government. And maybe you have 15 people from various walks of life that make up the citizens council. And you have whatever rules as far as nothing get out of control, no money, all that stuff like that. And whatever, nothing's going to be perfect ever. But in order to have a legitimate functioning democracy, you have to take out the incentives that block democracy. We don't have a democracy right now. We have a republic with a constitution that's been completely subverted by a corporate oligarchy and a national security state that pushes for perpetual war. That's what we have. That's what we have. So you may be, no, not Congress. The executive would be not one person. The executive branch would be a small collection of a citizen council. So you wouldn't have, it's just like, remember, if you think about how things were done in tribes, they have a council of elders, right? Now, we may give different power to different groups. I don't have all the answers as far as how you divvy things up. I mean, these are details that can be worked out. They're not incredibly difficult to think through. And it's whatever consensus is, I think people can agree right now that what we have right now is not working for the average American, right? Hasn't for a long, long time. So, both the the steps to do this, the desired outcomes, and what would come after would all have to be part of the plan, the blueprint. And it's not going to be perfect. Our country will never be perfect, no matter what we decide to do or how we decide to try to structure it. There's always going to be people who want to bribe and do other crazy stuff, look out for themselves at the expense of others. Nothing's going to be perfect. The question is, can we make it better? Better, right? And can we take the pressure off of the potential for nuclear war? Let's face it, the way that our country is acting right now, it's kind of irresponsible, right? We're tempting fate with China. We're tempting fate with Russia. It's a very cavalier way to approach international diplomacy, or lack thereof. And it's dangerous. I think it's very short-sighted and very dangerous. And let's face it, the people in the United States are arrogant, the leadership. They're beyond arrogant. And they're dismissive of the very people with who they should be the most humble with, like the Russian leadership and the Chinese leadership. And they treat them like garbage, like they're subservient vassals that are to be pushed around like little schoolyard bully would do. And wait till you see the interview with President Putin, which you'll see, and just listen to what he says. I think he's rightly pretty pissed. I would be too if I was treated the way he's been treated. So you asked Eve, I think that's how you pronounce your name. That's an answer. Now, other people may have different answers. That's fine too. And there may be other pieces of the puzzle that would be sensible to put into that I just haven't thought to put in, or others would say, oh, what about this? Yeah, sure, whatever. But I think it's a pretty sensible way to try to create some level of to put pressure on some people that otherwise could give a shit what people think, because it really has an impact on them. Because nothing ever changes without some sort of unrest, whether it be nonviolent civil disobedient or some step thereafter, or some combination of the two. And I'm certainly not for anything that involves anything other than civil, nonviolence, right? That's the way to go. But what normally will happen if people in a society start to do this, if they, quote, rise up nonviolently, and we've seen examples, right? Look at the civil rights movement. What happens? The police come in, they sick the dogs on people, they spray them with hoses, they maybe shoot at them, whatever it may be. They respond sometimes with very disproportionate force to try to quell things, right? And that's what usually gets things to take the next step, is because somebody responds in a way, just like we've seen with this conflict. It's always about escalation, right? So I don't know. I don't think any of it's going to happen. Because I think the American citizens are so conditioned to think of voting as the path to reform. And turn on a TV right now, and you'll hear people on MSNBC, CNN, Fox talking about the elections, right? Everyone's talking about who believes this, who's polling at this, right? It's all they talk about. Who's talking about doing something outside the elections on TV? Nobody. In fact, I talked to a guy here on TikTok who I like. His name is Tim. He's called The Handsome Liberal. He's a guy that's done rideshare videos. He also does a periodic live stream it's like a politics talk show. And I got on there one time and I laid out a little quick version of what I just said to you. And he said, well, let's come back to earth for a second. This is the thing. Nobody even fathoms that some path like that is even possible, much less, it seems like a fiction movie, right? But unfortunately, you get what you get in a democracy for what you do with it. And we intentionally or otherwise have allowed this thing to slip into this circumstance, not holding it to account earlier. And now it's like we're not the frog in the warm water, we're the frog in the near boiling water right now. And it's about the lid's about to come down, I think, and that's unfortunate, that what was a great potential for a republic is turning into an authoritarian nightmare. And it's just the way these things go. You can't hold on to it forever. So there was somebody in the queue that wanted to come up, and I didn't let him come up. I apologize for that, whoever that was. I had to finish the answer to Eve. I hope I'm saying that right. Are you still in the chat, Eve? You want to come up and talk and see if you have some different ideas? I'd love to hear your point of view. But Eve said, enough about problems. Let's talk about solutions. I like that, the fact that people, listen, I don't have all the answers. Sometimes things are what's called a predicament. So problems can be solved. Like, hey, I got a thorn in my foot. Okay, let's pull the thorn out. A predicament is you have 5,100 passengers on the Titanic. It's sinking and you have 1,300 people's worth of life rafts. That's a predicament. There's no easy answer to that. Who do you pick? I don't know, women and children, and then maybe a few men, or I don't know, do rock, scissors, paper or whatever. But you can't help everybody. And I think the problems that the United States has gotten itself into with its debt, its overextension militarily, all of the BS it's done over the years with sanctions and money and military power, it's created this very difficult, complex situation that's probably not going to end well. I don't know. I don't have a prediction. I don't have like a crystal ball that I look into, but I can't imagine it's going to be great. And listen, life is not bad here. Let's face it. I mean, it's difficult financially at times, but it's still, we have relative political stability, and we have some freedom to go out during our day when we're not working to try to chase this difficult situation. So it's not horrible, but it's probably, and this is hard to swallow, it's probably never going to get better. And that's because the economic conditions are just won't allow for it. Even if Trump gets back into office, things aren't going to be markedly better. I know that really bursts people's bubbles when I say that. They're like, no, man, Trump's the man. He's going to make it right. No, he won't. The economic cycles that take place are not presidential driven. They can change a few policies, do a couple tax breaks, whatever. But substantially, the central bank policy and interest rates is what changes the economic factors. That's it. And during his presidency, rates were at historic lows and had been for a long time. And then all the money that came in for the pandemic absolutely swelled the stock market. But up until then, there was still a good flush of money. If you look what happened after 2008, just go back and look at the charts on the Federal Reserve. A ton of money came in for 2008 to repair the banking system. And it's just been going straight up ever since. So that's where it's the supply of money and cheap interest rates that drives the economy. Period, full stop. And when rates go up, the economy slows. And when rates go down, the economy increases. And we had a very long period of time with very low interest rates that was historically anomalous. And when you get free money, guess what happens? You've got to give it back. It doesn't last. Nothing's for free, right? So that's what's going on there. Yeah, it's cycles. If you understand economic cycles, that's what changes the economy, not so much the individual administrations. They really, and by the way, most really don't even know what the hell they're doing, quite frankly. Have I studied William Mosler? No, I've never heard the name before, Jaron, or I think it's Jaron. No, let me screenshot that. I'll take a look. Always curious to hear what does he talk about? Is it economics, or what is his thing? If you don't mind just saying real quickly, please. Oh yeah. Somebody says even North Korea is better. I don't know about that. I know that what happened in North and South Korea was completely caused by the United States, though. If you don't know the history of that, Midwestern Marks, if you don't know his name is Eddie Liger, and he's on TikTok, and he has a great set of videos on North Korea. So if you haven't been to his thing, or you can go to his website, it's midwesternmarks.com. And Marx is spelled M-A-R-X, for those of you who don't know Karl Marx. But yeah, Eddie's done some great pieces on North Korea, so I don't want to. He does it way better than I'll talk about it. Yep, a lot of problems. And the other thing is, a lot of the problems around here are because of. Says I got 2 people they want me to invite to live. Let me see if I can invite one person. I'm not sure what that's about. A lot of the problems that are in the world because we caused them. Like, look what happened in Central America. Why did those problems happen? Why are those? We caused it. The United States went in and completely destroyed whatever the politics were that had stability in the country, to put in some crazy person that benefits our companies, that creates total chaos. And it just happens over and over. Look what happened in Iraq. Look what the U.S. did in Iraq. Listen, the guy who ran the place was no sweetheart, right? Saddam Hussein, but he kept order, right? He kept things under control. It was a much better society, even though obviously if you get on the guy's wrong side, you're going to be in big trouble. But it kind of was somewhat stable. And as soon as he was gone, just total chaos. And that happens over and over again. Libya, great example. I mean, Gaddafi. It was actually not the worst country. It was one of the most economically advanced countries in all of Africa. And the standard of living was pretty good for most people. And, again, these strong men keep stuff going. And what happened when he was taken out? Total mayhem to this day, right? It's a disaster. Libya is a total disaster. And that's on purpose. Instability benefits, in many cases, a lot of the people who don't want others to have strong positions of power. It's why Sykes-Picot was done, and the whole Middle East was drawn up that way. So, yeah, unfortunately, the U.S., and I blame the people that migrate to the border. Well, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if there's a reason that individuals have to flee political violence and they come to find asylum, I think that's a legitimate reason to seek asylum completely, 100%. So for people that say no one should be allowed in ever because that, yeah, if we cause a problem and then people have to go to flee that stuff and they want to come here, I'm all with that. I'm not a compassionless human. I think what's happening now that's different is there haven't been as many situations that are the driving force for that. And here's why. People from all over the world, from Syria, from Uzbekistan, other places, are flying to Mexico or they're getting into the southwest border and they're coming into the US. They're not people from Central America or Guatemala that were pushed out during a military exercise. They're coming from all over the world and pouring in at record numbers. Now, I don't know all the details of that. I'm not an expert at that, but all the reports that I've read and seen talk about that particular anomaly and the fact that the Biden administration has been so cavalier about letting people come in. I'm not a big anti-immigrant person. My parents are probably immigrants from my forefathers, right? We all came here somehow. Only the people who were native to the continent are native, and many of them unfortunately got unalived. So no, I'm not against anybody who wants to seek a better life. I'm totally with it. I don't know how you do that in a safe and manageable way, but I don't think it's what's going on now is my point. That's my guess. We have somebody here who is names written in Arabic. I apologize. I do not know how to speak Arabic. But welcome. Hello, are you there? Let me see if I didn't unmute you. There we go.
To what you said, and which is right. Like today, United States is a corporation, and I came here as a refugee, just like a lot of people, but exceptional one, a refugee in democratic country, and for 15 years with no work permit, even though I'm married to U.S. citizen and my daughter born here. My daughter, she's 12, and she start questioning if this is democracy dead, how come they don't give you a work permit? Well, we have to know that I'm with the movements of Morocco, Republicans of Morocco. We was asking to have Republic of Morocco.
Okay.
And Hillary Clinton has a good relationship, which is corrupted relationship with the dictator of Morocco. And believe it or not, they brought some DGST police spy, and they are refugee citizens right now. And they start all fighting against me. They don't want my voice to be heard. My wife, which is U.S. citizen, has bachelor degree, passed all exam to be Chicago police officer. She was ready to go to the academy. Then she got surprised that they are pending her case for like 8 years till she reached the age of 40. Then they told her, "You're not qualified your age." And I just want to add those things to you. Today, I believe we are not in the United States of America anymore. I believe we are in the United States of Israel. When we see billions of dollars spent from taxpayers' money to bomb innocent people, and same done in Ukraine, when we have most of the city in U.S. people homeless, ex-veteran homeless, and bringing all immigrants here to use them. I'm questioning if is not that human trafficking by any chance. But we need to see who's behind all that and why they don't pay just like anybody. This is a big crimes. And I believe if that law should be respected any longer, we should see those criminals which are in the power paying the price for the crime. You do the crime, you do the time. So to add the last thing I want to add, we never heard or even imagined that we're gonna find cocaine in the White House in Biden watch.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy thing, just crazy. So I just want to thank you for being honest, and hopefully we all create a force of power, and don't be naive and vote for the same ones and wait for the something's gonna change. No, we gotta try to vote for somebody that is gonna really change this country, not the Democrat for sure. I'm not sure for the Republican we lost. We cannot trust them either. But there is a voice that I heard. I don't know if everybody agree with me. I heard Dr. Malcolm Tanner. He's running for president, and I hear what he has to say, and I really like because he's going in the same direction because he's aware that today United States is a corporation, and the U.S. citizens should get their country back from this corporation.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I have to say, and thank you. And free Palestine always. This is crazy what we see. Like you should even animals will not behave like that, kill each other like that.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
true.
we should just stand for what's right. I mean, even if it happens to the Jews themselves, you will see if you will see the whole world standing with the Jews. But we see that the Jews that's being, I'm not gonna say the Jews because Jews is the religion. I'm sorry, the Zionists,
Nice.
the Zionists, you know, they trying to kill innocent people. I mean, this is a beautiful world and is enough resources for
Yeah.
all of us. I mean, why we should start killing each other? I believe even those with the big money, which who run the world, I don't think they have a happy life to see all this happening. I mean, that's just crazy, and I hope they come back to their state of mind and hopefully. And if not, I hope that someone that has the courage that will stand up, and we all gonna go after him to change all this bullshit. Thank you, sir, and God bless you, and God bless
Thanks.
hopefully America for what's right, not genocide.
Yeah, I hear you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, it's you have to wonder sometimes, what are the influences that are driving some of these decisions? Is it just APAC? Is it just money coming in from companies, or is there more to it? We all heard about the Epstein Island scandals and whomever was involved with that to whatever extent. I don't have any evidence. I know they were supposed to put out a list. They said they did. I doubt it was the real list or even the full list or whatever. Even Trump, I don't know, who knows? But even people like Bobby Kennedy, I don't know, for those who haven't heard him talk, but there was a great interview he did with Dave Smith from comedian Dave Smith, libertarian. And I think he did a great job, but he's a very anti-Zionist Jewish person. He's a comedian, so he's, able to put things in ways that I think are entertaining. And he went on Joe Rogan and talked about this issue, and then he had a debate with, Bobby Kennedy. And for all the sense in the world that Kennedy makes on some of the other things about regulatory reform, pharmaceutical companies, environmental pollution, all the things he's sort of done research into and somehow magically finds the truth, so to speak. And then on this issue, he's just 180 degrees off of anything I would call the truth. It's just talking points out the yin yang. Like he could be the poster boy for Israeli talking points. And you have to wonder, why would a guy who's supposed to be that smart come down that hard and one-sided on this particular issue? Is there something to that? I don't know. But I've thought about that a lot. So who knows? But yeah, I agree. The country is run pretty much by a corporatocracy. If you know who Chris Hayes is, Chris Hedges, not Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes is on MSNBC. Chris Hedges, the author and intellectual who happens to teach in a prison part-time, who's one of my favorite human beings. He talks about it. This has been a slow motion corporate coup d'etat since like the early 80s. And look at all the systems, look at all the think tanks and all the different non-governmental organizations and all the corporate structures and the money and what we talked about. It's been a slow chess game, and they've won. Let's say, somebody put it this way, we're in checkmate right now. That's how bad it is. We're literally in checkmate. There's not much that can be done. Now, what I mentioned, if it could come together and be brought to bear soon, I think that might make some difference. I don't know exactly how and I don't know what the desires or the stated goals would be, and the after. That's a fair point to bring up. But I think absent that happening, and I don't think it'll happen, I think between the economic decline and because some of the security forces that are going to come in, this place is going to slip into a whole different animal. And I think life here in 5 to 7 years is going to be totally different than what it's been in the last 20 years. I mean, just almost unrecognizable. And I don't say that with glee. I'm saddened by that because, you love the place you're born, you love the land you're from, you want to support the policies of your government, you want to feel good about your country. But when you learn what's really going on, it's like, damn, I can't support that shit, And I think that because somebody says different how, that's a great question. Let's talk about that. So right now, in terms of your buying power, for groceries and other things you spend money on, do you have more money or less money? A lot less, right? I don't know where food is where you are, but the same thing I bought even a year or two ago is probably either 50% to 100% more expensive in some cases, sometimes more. All the goods that companies are buying cost more, which means everything gets priced up even more. It's sort of a self-fulfilling thing that keeps happening. And because of the way the US dollar is working in the international economy, it's going to get worse. As more and more countries stop buying our debt, and as more and more countries get rid of their dollars, they're everywhere right now, but they'll be taken out of circulation as they shift to other currencies. It's going to make our ability to buy things much more difficult. And it's going to make our money worth less. Not worthless, but worth less, as it started to now. And people say, well, inflation's gone way down. No, it hasn't. The rate of the increase of the rate of inflation has shifted lower. But things have still continued to become more expensive. That's a talking point by the Biden administration. Oh, we've dropped inflation to less than 2%. No, the rate of increase has fallen to some degree. But that doesn't mean anything as long as it's still going up. Right? It's better than going up at 7% or 10%, but I think those numbers are lied about anyway. So what's happening is, if you haven't noticed, is people living in the middle or towards the lower end of the spectrum are being pushed lower and lower and lower. Because if the money you spend won't go as far, it can't help but have a lower standard of living. It just makes common sense. And some people, they can get away with it. If you're making $100,000 a year, you can take a 15% hit on your money and not be in terrible shape as long as you don't have too many bills. But if you're making 30 or 40, that cut is significant to your ability to cover your bills. Then you go back to use credit cards. Who owns the credit cards? The rich people. Do they charge fair interest? No, it's 20, 25, 30% sometimes, right? You get stuck in this never-ending cycle of debt service, which with student loans and credit card bills, I think most Americans are going to be stuck in that spot more than ever before over the next decade or two. So when I say things are going to get worse, what I mean is economically, people will not be able to maintain the same standard of living they've maintained, which was the big middle class thing, the whole, American dream that we've always heard about, right? And it's going to become the American nightmare. Because where does the money go that we spend? It goes to Wall Street, right? Try finding a place in your town without a chain store. Every city looks the same now. You go down any major street, blindfold yourself, take the blindfold off. It looks like every other place, right? It's embarrassing. And it's all corporate. Now, from a security standpoint, I think the people that are in power are not stupid. So you say different how? Well, how is life for us now? What are we able to do? Well, we have pretty relative freedom, right? You can get in your car and go places. You can choose to spend your money on what you want. There's not a whole lot holding you back other than your own economic means. But I don't believe that's going to be the case in 5 or 10 years. You're like, well, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is I think a different form of money is going to come. With our debt being what it is, both at the federal level and, of course, at the private level, which is you and I, there's going to have to be some sort of reset. There's no way that debt's going to be paid off. It's just too big, it's too onerous, and there's going to be some sort of a reset, a repegging of some other currency that's going to replace the current system we have now. And I think it's going to be central bank oriented, and it's going to be digital, meaning that it can be programmed. And we could talk about central bank digital currency, which is what it's called, CBDC. And that's going to be one of the biggest curtailments of freedom in the history of the United States. It's going to be the biggest change, I think, that we've ever gone through economically. And while it's not a guarantee that it's coming, I think that it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be in place. Now, what elements that get programmed is up to debate. But in terms of different how, just imagine for a second that if you got paid something, your paycheck, for example, or if you got your tax refund at the end of the year, or you had to pay your property taxes using this or something like that. Imagine if somebody could put a timer on it. Like if you had 1,000 quote unquote digital dollars, you had till the end of each month to spend it or you lose it. And you may say, well, that's crazy. It's my money. No, it's not. It's a utility that you're using that you get paid in that can be controlled by somebody else. And you're like, well, that's crazy. There you go. You asked how things are going to change and get worse. I think that's worse than better. Let's take it a step further. Let's say, for example, that you're somebody like me who's very outspoken on social media, who speaks in ways that the powers that be don't necessarily like too much, which I'm almost guaranteeing they don't. They just like the Canadian truckers up in Canada, if you don't know that story, a bunch of truckers who didn't want to have to take the Pfizer Moderna thing, basically said no, and then the government cut their money off. They just shut their bank accounts down. So same way, if you're getting programmable pay, you get your money as programmable, it won't work. Or it can be limited the geography in which it works. So if I travel to another city and I'm trying to go spend money, maybe get a hotel. Sorry, sir, it won't work. What do you mean? Well, your money won't work. I can't accept your payment. What do you mean? Your payment's not authorizing. So imagine that for a second. Imagine if somebody makes you stay somewhere or limits your ability to move or, maybe, starts to fine you involuntarily. You have no ability to say no because the money just gets deducted from your central account. So these are just things that could happen. I'm not saying they will in the totality of us, and there's many other ways it can be programmable too. You can be limited on what you can and can't buy. So if somebody decides you can't travel on an airplane, guess what? You're not flying. You're just not going to fly. If somebody decides you can't buy more than a certain amount of fuel for your car in a month, you're not going to buy a certain amount of fuel. You just have to use the budget you're given, whatever it may be. Somebody may say you can no longer buy alcohol, for example, for whatever reason. Maybe your doctor put a note in your file saying you drink too damn much. Boom, your money doesn't work there. For example, these are just many, many iterations of how this could work out. I think that's coming. I think it's unavoidable. You can't not do it because you're going to be forced into it. We're going to be forced into it if you stay here. And they're going to, by the way, you can do things like buy gold and silver or other assets. Guess what's going to be made illegal? Gold and silver. They did it back in the 1930s. They can do it again now. You're like, well, that's crazy. That's never going to happen. This is America. Wait and see. Wait and see. And the reason they're going to do that is not because they want to make your life miserable. It's because they know very well that as the standard of living slips for a large number of people, they get angry. And you have to have some way of keeping the anger down. And if you know that if you start getting out of line, that your whole life turns off, well, you're probably not going to get out of line, right? You're going to take what you get as best you can. And I think what's going to happen, most likely, is there going to be some sort of universal minimum payment that people get that keeps you just on the edge of not wanting to go riot, but just enough that you're, not so much that you're not going to freak the hell out. You can just barely deal with it. And there's going to be hundreds of millions or a couple 100 million people that just barely make it, while the wealthy continue to abscond with all the money. That's what I think is going to happen. And so therefore, I don't think many people are going to have a chance to go through the same capital system that we've become used to. I think that's going to all change. I could be totally wrong, but I think that's where it's probably headed if you could make the argument. And probably there's going to be a draft too. I think there's going to be compulsory military service because no one right now wants to join the military. I don't blame them. Do I see a way out? I mentioned it earlier. There's going to have to be some kind of uprising, some sort of soft revolution of some type, like where people basically stand up and say, no, this thing's gotten too far. I think a lot of people recognize this thing's out of control. They're just not really sure what to do about it. I mean, I think most people can look at what's happening and go, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem fair, because it isn't. And everyone, no matter how hard you try, it's like trying to climb a greased flagpole or trying to run on a treadmill. You just don't go anywhere. And you're tired and you're frustrated and things just, I see people on TikTok crying in their car. They literally have the camera and they're like, I can't take this anymore. I'm working 2 jobs. I have my kids. I can't do it. I can't get ahead. I'm frustrated. You can see it. They're broken. And to ask somebody like that to spend time outside of that broken to go organize at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, they're like, dude, I have to lay down. I'm just tired. Right? And I think a lot of people aren't going to have the will or the ability to participate in anything that's going to be of size enough to make a difference. And that's people who even know about what to do. Most people are so dumbed down purposely by the system that they don't even know what they don't even know. They don't even know what the hell's going on. They think it's Joe Biden and those damn liberals that's causing the problem. And meanwhile, people are deathly afraid of Trump being elected because they think that the guy with the orange hair is going to become a dictator. And meanwhile, none of that's what's going on. It's the oligarchy and the national security state that's pretty much shoving us collectively into a corner while they do what the hell they want to do domestically and outside the country. That's it. That's how I see it. Now, if somebody sees it differently, I'm more than happy to entertain that. And I don't mean to be so negative, but I think we're in a very precarious spot. And I think that people will realize, probably 15 years from now, they'll realize, holy shit, man, how do we not see this coming? But then it's going to be too late to do much because of the systems are going to be in place that make it impossible to step out of the lane you're in. So I hope I'm wrong about every last word I say. I've thought about this for a long time and then tried to see what might change, and it's all gotten worse. Okay. Timmy Thunder Hip Hop. That's an interesting name. What's on your mind, Mr. Hip Hop? I should say Mr. Thunder Hip Hop.
Yeah, Timmy Thunder.
Hi, Timmy
Actually,
Thunder.
Chip
How you doing?
Barnes. I'm doing all right, Chip. How you doing?
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many. It's like one of the big encyclopedias, the huge ones that from A to Z. There's so many topics to talk about of what's wrong, and then of course, what's going right in our world and in America. But the thing that gets me is how there's all these people that are anticipating some type of revolt, a revolution, a civil war, and they are in fear of what's could be happening here because of what's happening at the border and all the military age guys coming over. And there's all these threats, but the thing that I see with these people that I would call very patriotic, they want to stand up and defend their country, and they want to do the right thing, or what they see as the right thing. They want to back Trump, or they want to, in the other case, they want to back Biden because they think it's the politically correct thing to do. All these people are wanting or expecting this big, gigantic episode to unfold, and they're getting ready for that day that, the poop hits the fan. The thing that gets me about all these people that are willing to do all these things to protect their families and the country is they don't see that we're already at war. We're at war with, obviously, our government, with their political views, the way they're controlling us, how our freedoms are taken away, how we're being manipulated, how we're being divided. And we're also at war with corporations. The corporations we're at war with are approved and okayed by the government because the government does nothing to protect us from the corporations. We have pollution in the water. We have toxins and chemicals in the food, from your toilet paper to your receipt tape to your light bulbs. They took away the incandescents. They give us these other light bulbs. They cause all kinds of health issues. We are definitely already at war, and I don't see any of these patriotic people trying to save their own families from the things that are already sickening us, and doing so much more damage, I guess you might say, and so much more harm in our own homes. Like, we're paying to be poisoned, and people are fine with that. We have chemicals in our food, we have dyes and all kinds of things that other countries do not allow, and we won't stand up and say, hey, why is our government not protecting our kids if they're the valued source in our American culture? Like, oh, kids matter the most. We protect them from pedos, we protect them from online predators and bad websites and social media, but we don't protect them from all the junk that's being marketed to them, from fast food to, just little kiddie snacks, with all the dyes and all the sugars, heavy sugars, and there's cancer rates are up so high with kids and adults, and we don't see our government actually taking care of us, or at least regulating the corporations that are putting out all these junk chemicals that are affecting us in so many ways. Our hormones are imbalanced. We got cancer, as I already said, that are going through the roof, obesity, but yet we're worried about people coming to the border. We're not worried about our own corporations, where our own families and friends work, doing a number on us. And it's like, we won't stand up to all that. So I'm sorry, I just went on a tangent. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, hold that thought. Stay up, please. I don't want you to go. So let's explore that for a second, though. So my take is, and I'll see if you agree, is that I think a lot of people are angry, but I don't know exactly if they know where to put their anger. And I listen to people like Jimmy Dore, if you've heard Jimmy Dore talk about this stuff, but he
I,
thinks
I,
that,
I like Jimmy Dore. I
yeah,
like
he
Jimmy.
thinks that I've met Jimmy, good guy. I think that he thinks that people have been pitted against each other in this left-right paradigm. I totally agree with that. And why is that? Because when you turn the TV on, you might watch CNN or MSNBC if you somebody supports Biden or Democrats, and Fox News if you support Republicans. Very few people get anything independent of that through the traditional news, and if they go online, they tend to go to their camp, and they're either Facebook or the groups here on. There's groups here right now that are having lives that are pro-Trump, and there's groups that are pro-Biden, and they're
Oh yeah,
going
it's
out
like a
right now.
sporting. It's like a total sporting event. You
Yep.
know.
And so instead of focusing on the real centers of power, which is the oligarchy, the corporate state, the high net worth donors, the money is speech, all the fake donations and corruption that goes there, and of course the national security state, which of course is what we're seeing in foreign policy. And it's basically created this unwinnable situation, and the average person is stuck on the wrong side. But they don't know, they're angry, but they don't know where to direct their anger. They think that by voting they'll make it right somehow, and I don't think that's going to change it. I really don't.
No, I don't either. I mean, we've had, I mean, what, how many presidents and what, the last 20 years, and we still have presidents that go in and either regulate or deregulate these corporations that are running, freely. Trump deregulated, and people thought, oh, he's going to save us money or he's going to make companies money. But I'm like, you have to have some kind of regulation on these corporations. The ones that are making food, the ones that are making chemicals. Obviously we've seen these train derailments, and we've seen these chemicals, go
Yep.
up in flames and smoke, and we're like, oh, out of sight, out of mind, until it's your water supply, until it's
Right.
your kids 15 years from now, then end up with cancer or end up,
Or your kids
having
in
babies.
school, your kids in school who are, unfortunately, somebody comes in and your kid's no longer alive. That kind of stuff too.
Exactly. And I mean, our government isn't working for us. And I don't see how this 2024 election year isn't opening more eyes to the fact that you can vote whoever you want in. They're not running the show. They're not doing it for you, the voter. I mean, I've seen so many of these videos where people will go out and find their, the senator or the governor or the mayor or whoever at some kind of, even Biden, the president, the vice president, and they'll find them at some kind of event where they're talking about a book or something else, and they'll be one of even like 200 people, and they'll raise their hand and they'll question about what's happening, a genocide, a war, spending something, the border, and they'll be like, oh, you don't have time for that, right? We're talking about a book, we're talking about dinner. You can never hold these people accountable once you elect them. Your voice only matters when it's election time, and people don't get the fact that your vote isn't paying for their yacht. Your vote is only keeping them in office, and they have other money resources. They have lobby money, and people are like, oh, this person is getting money from the lobby and this APAC, blah, blah, blah. You have no idea what kind of envelopes they're finding, or what other kind of, I guess you might say, special little packages that they might be getting for doing a disservice to the American people. They are not working for us. They have not worked for us, but yet the election cycle comes around, and there's so many people that are brainwashed to think this is going to solve the problems. No problems are being solved. And then we talk about a civil war, and you're talking about how, yeah, people are tired. They can't come home and say, hey, you know what? Let's get together with all my friends and start a posse of, Civil War people. The government will shut it down if they find out what you're doing. These truckers that went to Texas, what did that amount to? All those truckers left their homes and their families and their jobs to go to Texas. And then I see them driving back, and then there's some that are still there. We are being trapped in this divisive society where no matter what we say, nothing gets solved. No matter how many lives you have about what's happening in Gaza to Palestinians, it hasn't stopped anything. You can have a debate about how corrupt politicians are, how the money is, what's causing the corruption. We need to take the money out, and yet people will still vote for these people, knowing these people you vote for won't even pass a bill to take the money out. If we are up against the wall, knowing that no matter what we do, we are going to lose in the political battle, then yeah, when are the people going to unite and say enough? You get millions and millions of people that think the same. Where are they supposed to meet? At Starbucks? No, because everyone lives all across a big country like America. It's
Yeah.
impossible to leave your job to go and protest in, a state that's 1,000 miles away or even 50 miles away. We are so stretched. I guess we're stretched so thin that all we have is like these apps to get on and complain about things and talk about things and hash things out. But nothing changes, because even if 10 million of us said, I'm not voting because it's broke, there's going to be another 50 million people that vote for someone. And even if 300 million people said, I'm not voting, I'm tired of it, they're going to get a message that we want this whole political system overhauled and fixed. All it takes is one person to go and vote for one clown. That person gets in office, and you still need to let them do their 4 years, even if they screw you over every month. I wish we had something like in England where, every so often you can kind of be looked at and reviewed. And just like we have at our jobs in America, you get a 6-month review or a year review. I wish we could do that with our senators and congressmen and presidents, where every 6 months we get to vote and say, no, you suck. You're not doing a good job. You lied. Oh, but I haven't got there yet. Too bad. I don't know. I'm very passionate about what's going on right now. I have a lot of things on my mind as a parent, and we can't even stand up for ourselves against corporations. We don't have a say. I can call the FDA and say, why are you allowing all this crap in our food? They won't. They don't care. Why are you allowing all this medication? Why are you allowing antibiotics and cheese? And cheese, I didn't even know there was antibiotics in the flipping cheese. We're worried about antibiotics in our food supply, and it's in the damn shredded cheese, so it doesn't mold. And we're being over medicated, we're being over everything and over sugared, and yet we're worried about World War III when we're going through hell right now in America. People are barely making it, and yet our food source, our food supply is tainted. Our air and water is tainted, and yet we're acting like we're in a country of freedom. And oh yeah, we're patriots. Let's go to war. We're at war, and we're at war with each other. We're at war with the corporations, and sadly, we're at war with the fact that we cannot unite and do anything for ourselves because we're always looking for a saving grace as a politician who's always rich and can't even identify with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. By the way, I just followed you back. Why don't you DM me? I'd like to get you on for a longer segment when we have a little more time. We're coming close to the end of tonight, but a lot of people in the comments are saying I could listen to him all day, so maybe we'll bring you up and let them have a chance for that.
Well, yeah, my apologies. I was just rambling a little. I need to stay on.
No. I was simply
Stay
saying
on,
that no,
on
people
theme.
were,
It's just
were
there's so much.
people
There
were
is so much to
complimenting.
talk about.
They were
I
complimenting.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Right.
I'll say this one thing. Chip, Jimmy Dore he's awesome. But the thing that surprises me about Jimmy Dore is how he seems to think Trump and Biden are not actors. I view them as actors, because if people are looking at Biden now saying there's no way he's doing the job, there's no way he's calling the shots, then if he's not calling the shots, someone else is. So that would mean that he's acting, he's portraying a role. And I look at as Trump and Biden, they're role players. And Trump didn't have the power to get Assange back to America. He didn't have the power to pardon him. So I really don't think these people that are our presidents really have that much power. It's a dog and pony show. It's theatrical, political theater, and it's controlled opposition. And I think it's all a lot more talk than it is action. And we should have a wall. We should have a border, protected border, and we should allow anyone in our border that does it the right way. We should have a melting pot. Like, we should be proud of America as a melting pot, but we shouldn't let our border be overrun by just anyone, because we can't do it in other countries. There's no way we can do the same thing. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I appreciate the invitation to come back. We talk about one topic at a time or something, but I'm just surprised Jimmy Dore doesn't get the fact that, this isn't real. All these things are happening with Trump. I believe he's playing the fall guy. He likes to play the villain. I think he likes to be the bad guy on the block. He's playing the role of a lifetime where he gets all these court cases against him, but he hasn't spent one day in jail for all this stuff. It's a way to raise money. It's a way to make his base feel bad for him. It's also a way to make him look like that guy who's like, they wouldn't go after him if he wasn't, a threat to them. And I'm like, well, that's an easy way to turn a villain into a hero, making him out to be a hero to everyone, when I'm like, no, he's still a villain. They're both villains, Biden and Trump and Kamala Harris. If something happened to Biden, I would be even it would be even worse off, right? Because she might actually be able to do something because she looks like she's got something going on in her brain to maybe pull some strings and make some decisions. But I don't think anyone that's elected is ever elected to do whatever they want. If not, Trump would not have been impeached 2 times, and right now Biden would have already been impeached like 3 times because it looked like the Republicans really wanted vengeance. But apparently he's like a made guy, and you can't touch him nor his family. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up. Sorry about that.
Okay,
Went
so
on
thanks
another
for being here. I
tangent.
appreciate you. See you soon. Do it again.
Appreciate it too. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, listen, I just nodding my head. My head was starting to hurt. I was nodding so much, right? That's the kind of person I like to talk to. Interesting. Yeah, he gets it, unfortunately. And I don't think that it is likely that things like our food being poisoned and all these other things that regulations are supposed to work. Let's face it, there's a revolving door between industry and government, and they go back and forth and back and forth. I mean, this was really under Trump, this was really bad. The guy who was the energy secretary was from like a fracking company. I shit you not. The secretary of the department, I mean, you can't make that stuff out. No, Scott Pruitt, the EPA. They put the head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt. He was a guy who worked for a natural gas company. I mean, how can you have a natural gas company executive be the head of the EPA? I mean, come on. It's like Fox in the henhouse big time, right? It's sad. I wish it were different, but it is the circuit. Now, the question is, we're going to get what we get. I know it's really hard after a long day. Like right now, the last thing I want to do is like spend an extra hour or 2 organizing a bunch of people to go protest next week. And I'm not going to do that tonight, right? I'm going to go to bed. But it's that kind of stuff that people end up, forget about the US, people anywhere who are facing what we're facing have to do somehow. That's why I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think people are lazy or stupid. I just think they're beaten down, they're tired, and a lot of them are confused or don't know where to put their anger. They've just had it, but they're not really sure what to do about it, right? And that's a tough thing to be in. And it's nobody's fault, but the sad part is that people who do have kids, especially grandkids, man, oh man, I mean, they got to really be bumming hard because they're like, damn, they see the writing on the wall and it just doesn't look too good, right? It doesn't look good. And we haven't even talked about ecological stuff yet. And that's a really bad conversation. We won't have to get into that tonight. That's okay. Yeah, that's the real bummer, but I'm not gonna weigh you down with that one tonight. I do want to let people know that I'm on usually every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and this is listed as a little banner in my main video page. It's the first one. It's like pinned. It's every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. And occasionally I do some impromptu lives, and sometimes the Saturdays go a little longer. They are all recorded, and then I upload them to my YouTube and my Rumble channels. If you want to find out where they are, you can go into my bio, and there's a link. It says Linktree Chip Barnes. It should be clickable. If you're outside the United States, that link doesn't appear for some reason. So if you want to find the same stuff, the text that you have to type into a web browser that says Linktree Chip Barnes is listed at the bottom of my bio. So either way, once you get to that spot, you come down and you'll see my YouTube and Rumble. Just follow me there, and then you'll get notified when the new videos fall. But I put them there. I'm a couple days behind now. I'm going to go do it when we finish up, and they'll all be up by probably tomorrow morning, including tonight's. So I have to do them in order though, because if I don't layer them, they get out of whack. It looks a little silly. I don't know why you can't reorganize your videos on Rumble. It seems crazy, but you can't. Anyway, and then so in my bio, there's some links. So social media is to the top. There's some Telegram groups in the middle, which are things like Action for Change. Action for Change with the number 4 is a Telegram group that I set up about 3 months ago. So that people, about the conversation that Tim and I were talking about, that's what needs to be talked about. We need more people learning about this, understanding it, and hopefully finding a way to get involved. It's in my opinion, it's the only chance the people have to have any chance of getting out from under what I think, unfortunately, is coming. So, fingers crossed people learn, they start to take action. They say you need about 4% of the population to make some of these changes. That's about 12 to 15 million Americans. That's what we got to do. We got to get that organized. It's going to be tough if it's going to change. I don't think it's going to happen. And then towards the bottom, I try to do my work as objectively as I can. I try to be fair to guests. I try to be, I do my videos in a way that try to be, clear, kind of really they're not too polished. I don't know if I walk down the street with my dog and just talk like a normal person. And so if you like that style, you want to support me, I'm not doing this full time. I'm trying to do some trading. But trading's very risky and you go back and forth. You're not always making money. You lose sometimes. And, I don't always have steady income doing that. I used to drive Uber, but they've dropped the rates so damn far that you can't Uber drive anymore. So if you want to help out, I'd appreciate it. I have like a little Patreon thing at the bottom. It says $5 a month. That'd be great. If you want to make a one-off donation, there's different ways. You'll see it. It's all common sense. But I'm all user supported. I'm not somebody looking to make money. I'm looking to survive. And that's good enough. And it gets tougher every day, but it is what it is. So thanks for being here tonight. I really appreciate everybody being here. I don't know if there was a mod here tonight, but if there was a mod here, thank you so much for doing it because it's hard for me to manage the chat. If I missed your question, I apologize. I wasn't trying to ignore you. And if I missed you in the guest box, same thing. Hafid, tomorrow midday, I'll be on again at noon. So I'll let Hafid come on tomorrow. And if there's any questions I missed, just remind me and we'll do it. But I do want to say thanks for being here. Really appreciated the conversation. It was an interesting night. They're always different a little bit, right? So I'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks a lot.